want to mention though, when you said the cockette, you mentioned the cockettes.
Yes.
That they were transsexual, or transgender, but they were really
pansexual. Yes.
Pansexual.
I will correct it.
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid.
They weren't actually transsexual.
Well, what does it say in the heading? I forget. What is the acid dropping?
Acid drag, sexual anarchy. But we always said we were gender fuck.
Gender fuck. Yes. There we go. That is the best way.
One of the things you said later in the book was, all we knew is that we needed to keep moving. And I think that's when you were looking at people who were doing drugs and then trying to get sober and going back on drugs and being in bands and trying to make records or trying to have bands, just trying to sort of keep things going in a way, it seemed like, so they didn't have to pause and reflect. Possibly.
Yeah, there was that freight train was going 100,000 miles an hour, forward. There was no reflection, and rock and roll life, rock and roll life, it allows you to have very bad behavior, and people put up with it, and it takes, you really have to drop dead for someone to tell you to stop, kind of in earlier times, there wasn't people being thrown into rehab at a moment's notice, it was, when at the time when I got clean in the late 80s, I was living in Berlin, and a friend was, and I was strung out, it was very downhill, and a friend I knew, a poet from Australia, and she said, I'm moving back to Australia and I'm going to go into rehab. I was like, oh, what's that? I was like, I never even heard of it. And she told me, and she said, oh, meet me tomorrow. I want to talk to you before I go. And I was like, oh, good. She's going to give me all her drugs. I'll eat it. And then she handed me a bunch of Narcotics Anonymous literature reading list. And I was like, well, why not do this? But it was the first time I even heard of anything like that, and I was already in the late 80s. And then suddenly I was hearing about it a lot. People I knew, because it was really getting to the point of die or don't die.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people we knew from back then are no longer with us.
Yeah. I do want to kind of go back to the earlier thing we were talking about, the queer 70s, we don't want to be defined era. And that, that kind of ended when the AIDS epidemic started, in the early 80s. And then it was no longer a choice to not be out, There was a duty and mandatory to be out as and use whatever you had, whatever any voice you had. And I think that's when, for me, I was able to politicize sexuality, and that's what I'm saying. It didn't all go. And I think a lot of my friends were held by AIDS, but also the survivors, we all, got together and politicized ourselves, with ACT UP and different ways of just help.
Yes. There were some dark times.
Oh, yeah.
In the 80s. So when you, I kind of found it incredible that all three of the bands that you played guitar in before you became your famous self, doing your own music, which is wonderful, It's like people came to you and said, you're going to be in our band. Like Jeffrey said, you're going to play guitar. And then Ivy and Lex said, we want you to be in the Cramps. And you're like, oh. And then someone said, who was working with Nick Cave, you should be in Bad Seeds. Each one of those just kind of came at a moment in your life. Do you think there's any rhyme and reason to when that happens in your life?
Yeah. I think, well, when I was, when the Cramps asked me to be in the band, I had been playing guitar for 1 year. My one finger guitar for 1 year. And so I was pretty shocked because they were my favorite band, the end of the world for me. And so it was pretty shocking that they were going to ask me. It was some friends they were moving to, at the time, we were just moving to Los Angeles, which I thought was strange for one. But what makes all the sense later. But then some friends of mine, Bradley Field from Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, and Christian Hoffman from the Moms, we're music friends of mine, told them, you should go see this guy and his band, and they have a song about Ivy, and they're kind of a Cramp spin-off type of thing, which we were not. And that's how they came to see us. And actually, Lex came with a cassette player, microphone, and taped our show.
Oh, wow.
And actually, that tape just came into my possession.
Oh, my God.
And today's Lex's birthday. Happy birthday, Lex. Yeah, so maybe it is all in the stars. And actually the same with Nick Cave. I was our gun club had broken up. We were living in London, and I had a short-lived band called the Fur Bible, which I was not into, and that broke up. And so I was kind of at loose ends, and I was working in a silkscreen t-shirt factory that did pop t-shirts called Pop World. And in London, it was really the pits. I mean, I love silkscreening. It's a bad job, but I was kind of like deflated, and I was the shrink wrapper. That was the thing about that plastic going up your nose. And one day I was shrink wrapping, and I looked at there was a T-shirt with my face on it. And I was like, I have to stop doing this. And then the next day, practically, Nick Harvey and Nick Cave asked me to come on to work with that series. That's
amazing.
Yeah, so I think there's some serendipity going on with the goddesses. Yeah.
Later, when you were getting back into working with Jeffrey, he moved to London, I guess. But you were still in the Bad Seeds, and when they called you up, you had to go on tour with them. It seemed like you saw the Bad Seeds more as a job, and that you saw working with Gun Club again as more of a creative outlet for you. Is that true?
That's actually spot on. Really, it's that's exactly it. Because the thing with the Cave and the Bad Seeds and the Cramps, that was someone else's very strong vision. It was their vision. I was the cake decorator, putting frosting on things, and then food coloring, which is an important thing, But but with Jeffrey and the Gun Club, that was something made up together, and that was artful in a way that was more meaningful to me because of my relationship with Jeffrey and how we started together. And so, that was really the life's work, as opposed to it was more like a job, an amazing job. An amazing job with amazing people. But but nonetheless, my vision didn't really come into it with the bad seeds and the cracks. It was a worker.
So today I was racing